Hey y'all, it's Pretty Shy and welcome back to my channel. I am so happy you're here. Listen, ever since I started posting my videos, I've gotten 44 followers and I know it's not a lot, but listen, I'm happy anyway. So I thought that I would do a little story time for you guys and create some content that, will bring more people in. So if you are new to the channel, which of course you are because I only have, a few followers, go ahead and follow me because I will be creating a lot of content and, check me out, you know what I mean? This is the story time on how I tried to turn a madam into a Studsband. Yeah, I know. So, this is actually going to be the beginning of a series that I am creating on how I wasted my 20s. And I met this girl when I was 17, but I talked to her romantically until I was 20. So this is where we're gonna start the story time. This would be a good place to start my series on how I wasted my 20s because I feel like she really affected how I thought in my 20s. To start off, I'm going to give you a fair warning and let you know that this story is extremely embarrassing for me, but I'm going to tell it anyways in hopes that I can help someone else in that situation not make the same silly ass mistakes that I was making. And I just want people to know, don't be game goofy and don't think that just because you identify as a lesbian, bisexual, or whatever the case may be, that people aren't gonna try to take advantage of you, exploit you, and in my case, try to pimp you out. And it's kind of a long story time, so let's just get right on into it. Like I said, when I met Kim, I was 17. And just to give you a little background on my life before I met her so you can understand how I ended up in this situation. At the time, I was extremely invested on falling in love. I met her when I was 17. So of course, around that time, it's just young love, it's just puppy love, it's really strong, and I just wanted that. I just didn't know how to get myself in the situation to find love. And my childhood started off very unstable because we literally moved around every year until I got to high school. And I'm not talking about like house to house, I mean state to state. Sometimes even twice a year until we finally landed in Washington State. And that was around middle school. I was still struggling to make friends and I had previously been bullied at every school that I attended. So all the friends I had at the time came from MySpace or some sort of social media. And I never experienced dating anyone face to face. So that's literally all I ever dreamed about throughout high school was a relationship that didn't involve long distances. Now, at the time, my thoughts were completely consumed with the idea of getting married and starting a family. And pretty much in a nutshell, I was a simp and I was a huge square, even clear into my college years. And the main reason for that was because I was deadly afraid to talk to people. That was my biggest fear in high school, college, and I still don't really like talking to people, to be honest. For example, I had this crush in high school, and every time I got near her, I would completely freeze up. It was like I would lose the ability to speak or even just act like a normal person. And I would try to chat with the girl every single day since I met her in freshman year on orientation. I even wrote a note to her that I intended on passing to her in class, letting her know I liked her and all of that. But whenever we were together, I would just start hyperventilating. I'd have a mini panic attack. I just couldn't deal. So towards the end of senior year, I finally got her to come hang out with me. And we're sitting on the porch while she's just smoking a cigarette. And the only freaking conversation that I could think of and muster up was how impressively far she could spit. That's how bad my social skills were. I couldn't talk to people. So fast forward to the summer after graduation, I made a promise to myself that I was gonna step outside my comfort zone and find a girlfriend in college. I was just completely ready to ditch the shyness and throw myself out there. So a few weeks prior to starting my freshman year in college, I was at the bus terminal in Olympia, Washington, getting on the bus to go to Evergreen State College. Although I was enrolled at a different community college, I spent most of my days in Evergreen's library. So I'm on my way over there, and I get on the bus, I settle in the back seat like I usually do, and I notice this stud get on the bus. Now, she's got this beautiful dark skin, and I mean dark, like midnight, and this long hair down her back, and I just couldn't take my eyes off of her. I'm like, whew. She was looking clean as hell. She had the designer clothes on, jewelry just sparkling, and I just kept telling myself, like, just say hi, you know, hoping like she'd come over and talk to me. Eventually, she caught me staring at her because I was staring so damn hard. So I decided, okay, now's the time to go ahead and make my move. I waved at her and I waved her to come over to me, and she just looked at me straight in my face and was like, no, you come here. Excuse me? Okay. That should have been my first red flag, but I didn't know any better. And the energy in that moment mirrored the vibe we shared throughout the entire friendship, relationship, whatever you want to call it. And my advice would be to any young woman, old woman, doesn't matter. Don't chase after anyone, okay? Let them come to you. That may be an unpopular opinion, but hey, that's just me. Regrettably, I didn't know any better, so I got up and I made my way to the front of the bus with her. We introduced ourselves. She told me she was 30 years old and asked how old I was. And I told her I was 17, scared as hell, like, oh, she ain't finna talk to me. So I had to hurry up and let her know that my birthday was around the corner. And she was like, cool. So she kept talking to me. She told me that she was from Seattle, and I was curious, like, what are you doing all the way in Olympia from Seattle? And she explained that she was planning to enroll at Evergreen and was searching for places near the campus. So, of course, without hesitation, I offered to be her little tour guide and end up spending the entire day with her. Now, I'm 31, so all this happened like 12 years ago. I can't recall every little detail of our adventures, but that was the gist of it. By the end of the day, we exchanged numbers and she went on her way. Now, a month later, we were talking on the phone quite frequently, and honestly, to be honest, I was the one doing most of the talking. Kim actually never really talked, and she was more of the person to ask questions and just kind of pick my brain. So fast forward to our first date. It wasn't really a date. I thought it was a date. But I finally turned 18 and she asked me if I wanted to go grab a little bite to eat. And like I said, this is my first date as an adult. So I'm beyond excited. We decided to go to Chipotle at the Capitol Mall, but it really didn't unfold the way I thought. It didn't go the way I imagined my first date would be. Since I'd never been on a date before, I really didn't know how to act, so it just didn't go well. We walked in, ordered our food together, and when we reached the cashier, she casually told the cashier that I'm paying. So there I am, awkwardly footing the bill. At the time, I didn't even have much money to spare. So when we sat down to eat, I'm just completely bewildered, and I'm like, did I really just pay for this meal? Did I really just pay for this meal? Is it really a date? Because I could have sworn she asked me out. Why am I paying? Despite that, I still went out of my way to try to invite her over my apartment all the time. So she started to come over and smoke with me. Let me tell y'all about red flag number 2. She never bought weed. Listen up, ladies. Another word of caution. Steer clear of people who smoke but never have any weed on hand. It's a clear indication that they're just looking to take advantage. So if you're a generous person like I am, being around somebody like that can just totally be the cause of your downfall. Kim actually epitomized the term taker. Her sole focus seemed to be on one thing, which was making money. So not long after we met, I discovered that she was selling hard hugs. Which, keep in mind, you wouldn't think Kim had no money with the way she begged, but she did. Eventually, she even quit smoking just to dive into selling it instead of, smoking. So Guess who her main customer was? Me. Like a goofy. The thing is, she was constantly pressuring me to buy from her. Even when I told her, like, I don't need to buy from you because I have a medical card. When I turned 18, the first thing I did was get a medical marijuana card. And it was easy to get because I had gotten hit by a car when I was like 16, and it left me with a little bit of back pain. So I got the medical card. It was easy. I also received a settlement from that accident, but we'll bring that back up later. Anyways, this girl managed to convince me to use my medical discount so that she can stock up, and then she would break it down into dime bags with just like 0.8 gram in there, and then sell it back to me, talking about I need to be supporting a friend's business. Yeah, I felt so stupid, like incredibly stupid, but I just kept my mouth shut. And by that time, she recognized that I was an easy target and began to take advantage of the fact that I refused to speak up for myself around her. So from then on, our friendship turned into something very transactional. And I was aware that I was being taken advantage of, but at the time I was so desperate for affection, I still went out of my way to keep her in my life. So I started buying weed from her simply because she would come over and spend the night with me. Eventually, she started giving me bags to sell, y'all, to my friends and my family. And my goofy ass agreed to do it. So now she had me exactly where she wanted me, which was giving her money. I know now that she was grooming me from the start, but I just didn't know what was going on back then. I just know immediately she just started influencing the way I dressed, the way I acted. Everything I did was just solely focused on her. So for example, when I first met Kim, I was a bit messy. And she had like these extreme obsessive tendencies. Whenever she would visit me, she would make me clean up, even if the place was already clean. And only because I had a cat. And her biggest complaint was that the cat hair was everywhere. Like literally a black shirt would hate to see my house coming. So I kind of understood, but it's just that until I met her, I had never been concerned about things like that. And let me tell you why. We grew up very poor. I never had much in the way of clothes or any type of style, so I never cared about shoes or appearances. While Kim, she would dress up just to run to the corner store. So she started preaching that to me. And she would always say, like, you never know who you might run into, so you gotta stay ready so you don't have to get ready. And I know now that those are isms that she kept giving me, but I didn't know. Kim low-key, well actually high-key, brought the bad bitch out of me because she refused to go anywhere with me if I looked raggedy. At the time, I had locks, and she made sure that I kept them twisted all the time. And I would argue with her, like, locks are supposed to be messy. And she would insist that as a girl, you have to maintain your hair. And she would criticize me so badly that I would never let, her see my new growth. Now, when I say criticize, I mean downright hurt my feelings. She used to talk big shit. When she disliked what I wore or how my hair was, she would just talk shit. And she didn't like when I wore sneakers, so I started wearing heels and dresses as often as possible. When I met her, I looked like this. And then shortly after, I looked like this. And this, and this, and this. And mind you, I'm not going anywhere. I did all that just to spend more time with her, and it worked. She would always come over whenever I had some free time, which wasn't really much because I, worked and went to school. But she would come over. We really wouldn't do much, but she loved food and swore up and down she couldn't cook. So that inspired me to start learning how to cook. And it's funny how straightforward she was about my cooking. I was 17, I didn't know how to cook. And straightforward is actually a really nice word to describe her. Kim was downright rude, okay? The first dinner I prepared for her was for her birthday. I tried to go all out. I got all cute. I cleaned the house how she likes it. I made steak, shrimp, loaded mashed potatoes, carrots, broccoli, and cheese. And this is the picture, y'all. It looked decent, but it really wasn't good. Okay, I sat there and spent all day on Google trying to find different recipes so that I can make this dinner real special. And all I ended up doing was overcooking the steak, overcooking the shrimp, under seasoning everything. It was a mess. So when she tried it, the first thing she said was, "So why'd you ruin dinner?" And I'm just crushed, y'all. Like, and I'm talking about fighting back tears at the dinner table. Yet, despite not knowing how to cook, she still kept coming back. Let me just take a minute and give you red flag number 3. Never date anyone who does not spare your feelings. You shouldn't have to lie or sugarcoat things with your partner, but you should at least be considerate and gentle with their feelings. Anyways, back to the story. A few months later, she invited me out to her city, saying that she wanted to show me around and go shopping for matching shoes. And by this time, I had gotten my settlement from the car accident I had, and Kim started asking for everything. And although it was annoying, I was just so excited that she wanted to show me her stomping grounds, so I agreed, and I let her drive me to Seattle. First things first, she took me along while she sold hugs around the city, which at the time, it was a thrill. Like, it was such a thrill for me, but I promise you it was short-lived, okay? Being on the streets with her was very intimidating for me. We would like walk around downtown and make her little rounds or whatever. We ran into a customer, and I remember we went into the McDonald's bathroom where she showed the customer the little rock that she had, and they took it. Like, she was holding it in her hand like this. They just took it and was like, "Oh, I need to make sure it's real." Threw it in their mouth, spit it out real fast, and then darted out the bathroom. Now, I'm just standing there like, what the hell is happening? You know, she was pissed. So she explained that customers do that to bite off a piece and get high later. And as much as she wanted to like beat her ass for trying to steal from her, she didn't do all of that because she got work on her and she don't want to cause a scene in McDonald's. So fast forward that day, a while later, we're walking around the block still trying to get her work off, and she stumbled upon like some commotion that was going on. And to my surprise, she like jumped right in the middle of it. I don't even know how we ended up in this stuff, but a guy must have asked her what she was staring at, and without hesitation, she told him, "Oh, we could fight about it." And I'm like looking at her like, what? So I start pulling at her like, let's leave. Like, I was so fucking scary around the time. And that's the only reason she didn't escalate the situation, because clearly I wasn't going. So in that moment, I'm gonna tell you, I realized that Kim was never scared of anything. She never shied away from confrontation, and she always bragged about her fights that she had won. So it was initially exciting, like I said, but that's what made the thrill fade really fast. And on top of that, Kim was extremely mean. And I just continued to make excuses for her because the little bit she did tell me about her background was very troubled. She told me that her parents were incarcerated while she was very young, and she was raised by her grandfather. In fact, she told me that I could never meet him because he's too mean. Like, he's just this mean old man. And he's most likely the person that influenced her to be so aggressive, okay? Now, she said that her father was serving a life sentence and her mother had just been released after serving like some time for a murder charge. And then her father, she said he was a pimp all his life, even in prison, still to this day probably, I don't know. And her mom was a working girl. So I'm thinking that's probably why she's extremely cutthroat and ruthless. And that's red flag number 4. Don't date anyone that's quick to anger and likes to fight, okay? Because the next thing you know, they're gonna be trying to fight you. And don't make excuses for people that are treating you badly. You cannot change somebody. They literally have to change on their own. Anyways, that night, we're done running around the city, and she invited me to her place for the first time. So she told me actually that she was staying on her cousin's couch. So, you know, that's where we went. When we walked in, I seen a woman in a robe just walking around. And I'm instantly pissed off because she told me that her cousin was out of town. So I didn't know who this woman was. And at that point, she did not introduce me either. I didn't say anything because at that point, Kim and I were not officially together. And the only affection she had ever really showed me was when we would cuddle at night. So I had no idea if she was seeing someone else and seeing this woman practically naked in here, walking around with her side titty out and her coochie silhouette all out and about. I'm just feeling intimidated right off the bat. Like, she has this long ass bust down hair down her back all the way down to her butt. She got these long extravagant ass nails and eyelashes, and I'm just sitting in the living room with a stank face the entire time, while Kim just kept referring to her as ma. She just kept saying it. And eventually, after hearing her say it a million times, I realized this is her mother. And I'm looking at the lady and I'm like, oh, okay, they look alike. Mind you, this is my first impression of her, but it kind of brought things together for me. Like, everything started making sense. Her mother resembled like a ghetto Barbie, which was how Kim was wanting me to dress up. Another thing I noticed was the blatant disrespect Kim had for her mother. When she got irritated, she would not hesitate to call that lady a bitch, as if it were her name almost. And it was so bad, like, I had to say something. And mind you, I had never said anything to Kim, but I had to say, like, dang, like, stop calling her a bitch, that's your mom. And she would respond like, well, the bitch need to listen. And then her mom would respond with such patience and sweetness, like she just accepted the fact that her daughter's gonna call her a bitch. Mind you, I had been fussing with Kim about calling me a bitch at the time. And then it dawned on me, if she talks to her mama like that, there's no way she's ever gonna stop calling me a bitch. She would always try to like pass it off like, oh, you my bitch, right? So chill out. Now that's red flag number 5. If they don't respect their parents, I don't believe they'll ever respect you. Don't tolerate disrespect, especially from someone who's supposed to care about you, okay? Now, we ended up falling asleep on the sofa. We called it a night. We woke up mad early, and I'm talking about like 5 a.m., just to wait in line at the Nike store. When we got there, we found out that they didn't even have her shoe size. So as a true sneakerhead, she was genuinely upset. And I mean, she was upset for the rest of the day. I tried to cheer her up by buying her a different pair, and we still ended up getting matching shoes. And then I guess she thought, since I was being so generous, she would proceed to walk me through Macy's and any other store in the mall. And my dumb ass ended up buying her and her mama a North Face jacket out of just pure peer pressure. And she was still sulking after that about the shoes. So I started to get annoyed, because not only did you have an attitude, but I don't usually buy sneakers, name brand clothes, or anything expensive. Actually, that was my first time. So I was irritated that the jackets were $100 each, the shoes were over $100, and now we just both walking around with an attitude, so we leave. When we get back to the place, Kim actually like locks herself in the bedroom, kind of. Not locks herself in, but she's in there with the door open, and she's not coming out. Her mom and I just sitting in the living room, and she's just snapping on us about any and everything, to the point where I started crying, y'all. And at this point, her mom is just feeling bad for me. She's trying to comfort me, talking about, don't cry. She's just upset about the shoes. She'll get over it. And I'm like, eventually, I had enough. I'm over it. I'm over it now. So I decided to go ahead and leave and drive myself 4 hours back home. Let's get into red flag number 6. She was ungrateful as fuck. Don't date people that don't know how to be thankful, okay? They're always gonna feel entitled to what you provide for them, and it's never gonna be enough. Truthfully, I should have never bought her anything from the very beginning, that very first Chipotle burrito that I bought her, because she started expecting me to provide for her for every little thing. A few weeks later, she ended up asking me to help her get her car fixed. And I'm over here thinking to myself, didn't you just ask me for some shoes? If you knew your car was breaking down, then why would you ask me to spend money on clothes and shoes when you needed a part for your car? That's red flag number 7, okay? Don't date nobody that's gonna put shoes and clothes or material things over needs. Why would you put shoes and clothes over car repairs? And that's not to say that Kim wasn't responsible with her money. She was just irresponsible with everyone else's money. She would always hold on to her money and then hustle everyone around her, is what I started to notice. Either way, don't date somebody that doesn't have their priorities straight. And definitely don't date somebody that's extremely selfish. At that point, when she asked for the money, my settlement money was getting low. So I started to say no much more often. As difficult as it was, I couldn't give her anything if I didn't have it. So that's when she started trying to scheme to make money different ways. So this is very embarrassing, but she asked me to steal some clothes for her. Throughout our conversations on the phone, I had mentioned to her that I used to steal to get school clothes, groceries, and stuff like that when I was younger. So she thought that I could do it for her, and my dumb ass agreed. So she took me to the Capitol Mall. She asked me to grab some women and baby clothes. Now, I went into the store with a bag full of old clothes, nervous as hell, because this time is different. I'm not stealing for myself. And I had only stolen a couple outfits for myself before. Now I'm in the store sitting here looking at items that I wouldn't even normally shop for. So I'm just trying my best. I collected a bunch of items, and then I went into the dressing room, stuffed the new clothes inside the bag, left the old clothes hanging in the dressing room, and I tried to walk out. Of course, the security guards, they chased me down for the shit, and they called the police. It's so embarrassing. I just need a smoke break. Ooh, okay. So the police came and I was fined, but they let me go right afterwards. And I felt so embarrassed that I didn't even tell Kim that I got caught. I just told her I couldn't get the clothes, which was what I should have told her from the start. Like, I was so stupid. So anyway, she drove me home, and I ended up dealing with the situation on my own over time, and I paid the fine in silence, just out of pure shame. And a few months later, I did tell her what happened, and all she had to say was, "Why you didn't tell me?" Okay, that brings red flag number 8, because Kim did not really care that I got a charge. At least I don't think so. So never date anyone that's willing to risk your freedom, risk your record, or anything like that. Ultimately, don't steal, but if you do, never do it for someone else. Do it for yourself, okay? Now, these next 3 events led up to her trying to pimp me out. I can't quite recall the exact order they happened in, so I'll share them as I remember. But keep in mind, this was over a decade ago, so I don't remember every single little detail. So, since Kim couldn't get any money out of me, she started to use me for my car after hers broke down and I wouldn't help her get it fixed. So the first time she borrowed my car, she took it for the entire day and returned it on E. Red flag number 9. If someone uses your car and they don't bring you your shit back with some gas in it, please cut them off. Just go ahead and cut them off. It's self-explanatory. Don't be like me. Instead of cutting her off, I just told her she couldn't use my car anymore, which did not end well. When I told her no, she tried to like forcefully take my keys from me. So this is what happened. I was standing at my door at my house, at my apartment, and I had my keys in my hand. For whatever reason, I don't remember. But one moment I told her no, and the next moment she is like prying the keys from my hands. I didn't know what to do. She just was gone after that. Like, she forced the keys out of my hand, went down the stairs, got in the car, and left. And again, she brought my car back with no gas. So at this point, I'm getting fed up with her being around in general. And at this stage, it didn't matter whether I wanted Kim around or not. She was just gonna show up to my place. So one day she came to my house and asked me to give her a ride home. And I agreed, because if not, she probably would have just taken my keys anyways. And I didn't feel like tussling at the time, so I just was like, okay. And I didn't feel like driving, so I let her drive while I fell asleep. When I woke up, we were at a monorail station in Seattle. And I'm instantly pissed off because I'm expecting her to be pulling up to her house. So I instantly start fussing like, why are we pulled up at the monorail instead of your house? And she's like, I don't have a home. Okay. She was just sitting there. Like, I'm going off and she's just sitting there with like really nothing to say. And then out of nowhere, she's like, I don't have a home. And at the time, I was mad because I had to drive myself back home 4 hours and I knew she didn't have no gas money. So I'm really not in the headspace to really be caring about what she's talking about. So I got an attitude and I'm like, what do you mean you don't have a home? What happened to your cousin's apartment that you took me to? And she's like, her and her cousin fell out. Then why are we at the train station? And she says, I'm just finna ride the train. What do you mean you about to ride the train? Like, you finna go to sleep on a train? And she's like, yeah, unless we could get some money. And I looked at her confused, angry, annoyed. I'm practically yelling at this point because I'm so annoyed. And I'm telling her like, I don't have no money for you. And that you need to get out my car at this point because I'm just done with this whole situation. She's like, I know you don't have any money, but you could make some money. At this point, I'm irritated. What do you mean make some money? Because I've already tried selling weed for you. I've already tried stealing for you. I've already given you money. What do you mean make some money? Make some money how? And at this point, I'm on like a 7 or 8 and Kim is still on a, like she's down here on a 2, which is only pissing me off more because I'm irate and you're on a 2. So I'm looking at her with the stank face, like, make some money how? And like I said, I'm yelling. And she's talking about, with your pretty face, just walk up and down this street and one of these guys will give you some money. So it dawned on me, she over here talking about prostitution. So I snap, I lose it. I start going in. Like, you know what? Get the hell out of my car. How dare you suggest I sell myself? You go sell your pussy. Like I said, I'm at a 10 and she's still on a 2, unfazed. And then laughed a little, talking about, well, can I at least give $5 for the train? And I'm yelling like, absolutely not. You can figure out the train on your goddamn own. And after that, she pretty much got out and I got, I was mad and I drove my ass 4 hours home in disbelief. While I was driving, I made up my mind. I'm not talking to Kim no more. I'm not answering her calls. I'm not texting her back. I don't want to hang out no more. None of that. So the next night around 8 p.m., she calls me talking about pick me up without any apologies or any pleasantries, just pick me up. So I hung up on her. She calls me back insisting that I come pick her up. She talking about she came down here and the buses stopped running. So I'm like, why would you ride the bus all the way out here and you know the buses stop at 7:30? She's like, just come and pick me up, hurry up, and hung up. And I'm so upset, but as much as I wanted to cut ties with Kim, my heart wouldn't just leave her downtown stranded. And I know it's stupid of me to even think like that, but that was my excuse to allow this toxicity to, come into my space again. So I go and I pick her up. We're silent most of the night. When we get to my place, she falls asleep so peacefully in the middle of my bed, per usual, and I slept with my back to her instead of like all up on her like I usually did. The next morning, I woke up standing on business. I was very firm in my decision about her having to leave me alone and not want to deal with her no more. And she was kind of understanding that. So she was like, can you just drive me back to Seattle? I'm like, hell no, I'm not driving you back to Seattle. Instead, I'm like, I'll take you to the nearest bus station, which at the time, the closest bus station was in Lacey. But she keep insisting that she don't want to go there. She's demanding that I take her to the bus terminal in Olympia, which didn't make sense to be honest, because it would have been a shorter bus ride from Lacey. But anyways, I stood my ground and I pulled up to the bus terminal parking lot and just parked in Lacey. When I stopped the car, why Kim refused to get out, y'all? So once again, I found myself in the car yelling at her, talking about how bad she treated me and how She's always trying to use me and insisting that she just get the hell out of my car because I'm not going anywhere. I'm not driving anywhere. And she's steady talking about just take her to Olympia. But I actually stood my ground for once and I did not take her to Olympia. So after about 30 minutes in the car, she getting frustrated. She trying to reach for my keys and stuff. So I quickly like snatch them from the ignition, and then she's trying to grab them from me, but I'm holding on tight until like she just gives up and she just sits back and she's like, all right, fuck it. At this point, I'm just screaming, I'm crying, I'm venting my frustrations, and Kim, per usual, she remained eerily calm, like she was cool. She just kept telling me to like stop yelling and drive or whatever, be easy. And I'm telling her, get out of my car and shut the fuck up talking to me. She said, don't tell me to shut up. Mind you, I had never told Kim to shut up before. I didn't know that was a trigger for her. So I said it again. I'm like, I'm tired of you telling me what to do. I'll say it again and again and again. Shut the fuck up. Matter of fact, before I could even finish my sentence, she slapped the dog shit out of me. She slapped the shit out of me, y'all. I was like, shut the fuck. And then, pow, she just slapped the fuck out of me. And I had always felt like Kim could hit me, like she might hit me, but she never did. So at this point, I'm pissed off. In retaliation, I just lifted up my feet and just started kicking. The first kick was solid to the face. And when that happened, her whole facial expression just shifted. Yo, I thought she was gonna try to knock my head off in that car, and I was scared. Kim was bigger than me, taller than me, stronger than me, and I'm just scared shitless in the car, y'all. So I'm over here kicking for my dear life, like my life depended on it. I'm just with my feet. And she's steady trying to box me up, but she can't even get close enough. The only reason I ended up getting out of that situation was because somebody actually witnessed us fighting and called the police. So we're fighting and suddenly Kim's door just like swings open and someone pulls her out. And so much was going on at the time, I can't recall if it was the police or if it was someone else, but the officers were definitely there. They told me to get out the car and started asking me questions. I'm just so shook up, I'm not trying to answer no questions. I'm just crying, I'm insisting like, I am okay. And I just kept telling them, I just wanna go home. Okay, just please let me go home. The officer, he just steady asking what had happened. So I tried to share like as little information as possible because despite Kim at the time being a horrible person and being in the wrong, I really didn't want to see her get arrested. So the police, they're asking like if we're a couple attempting to pin a domestic on her. And I'm just like, no. At this point, Kim and I had never been a couple. We had never been intimate or even kissed, despite, you know, her calling me her bitch all the time. So we simply just spent a lot of time together and cuddled. And I explained to the officer that Kim was just a friend and all I wanted for her was to get out of my car, which led to the fight. I didn't mention who hit whom first. I was just focused on getting home. Eventually, they let me go. I drive off. I spend the entire night crying because I just really couldn't believe she hit me, y'all. And despite all of this, I still continued to talk to Kim for another 2 years, 2.5 maybe. And I'll share the story of how I finally left her and stopped talking to her in the next video. And I know you're probably thinking like another 2 years after all that. Unfortunately, yes. I didn't have much outside advice when all this is happening. That's first. So I kept everything to myself because I was too ashamed to share what was going on. My parents, we talked and everything, but they didn't have much dating advice to offer me since they didn't fully accept my sexuality, which is understandable. They can only guide based on their own experiences. So I'm not blaming anyone but myself at the end of the day. I was an adult. I put myself in these situations when I knew better. Now, I'm sharing this because I hope that, again, I want this story to resonate with someone. Hopefully some girl in the same situation right now can see this video and it'll encourage her to just leave before it gets too bad. I can tell you right now, it's not gonna end well. It's important to know that, like I said, just because you identify as homosexual does not shield you from issues like trafficking or domestic violence or anything like that. So that's pretty much going to be the end of the story time for now. But as always, thank you so much for watching. And if you think I'm a vibe, please like and follow for more.